Hello, YTPC. Joshua Stewart, smoking a pipe up north in the woods. So, once again, we're not up in the woods. It's another Codger and a Cob and Tool Time Tuesday. My cob, I've just got another Missouri Meerschaum Legend, I believe is what it is. And in it this week for the Codger blend, I've got some Carter Hall. This is actually my very first time trying Carter Hall. This is some from that sample that I got from Don at Pipe on the Mountain. Thanks, Don. First impressions, not too bad for a burley. I think it's mostly a burley. It's got a little bit of similarity to the Prince Albert. But it was over a week ago when I tried that, and I've only had the one bowl of that, so it's hard to pick out any nuances of difference between them. But yeah, it's. I guess I like it better than the haunted bookshop I had the other day. And speaking of the haunted bookshop, I just watched Greg at Tunnel Take. I watched his video, kind of commenting on haunted bookshop. I was aware that Matches 860, that was kind of his go-to blend, and I think everybody in the community respected him and what he's done. I mean, he passed away before I started pipe smoking, so but his legacy lives on. So that's maybe part of the reason why I want to like haunted bookshop, but just not there yet. But it's Carter Hall. This isn't too bad. Maybe some of you guys that have a little bit more experience can kind of share some of the differences that you've noticed between the Carter Hall and the Prince Albert, because I would guess that if, let's see, what was it, about a week ago, week and a half ago, something like that, when I tried the Prince Albert, I'm having the Carter Hall today, and if in another week I did a blind taste test between the two, I probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Yeah, this is, to me, it's not too bad. I mean, it's kind of everything a Codger blend should be. I mean, it's not necessarily the over the top wow, but it's not bad. Maybe not getting quite as much of that cocoa note as the Prince Albert had, but I'm still getting just a real super faint little bit of that cocoa, which maybe my mind might be playing tricks on me too, because I was thinking about the Prince Albert and kind of looking for a cocoa, and then kind of tasted it. So we got our codger and a cob. Now it's tool time. So last week I shared one of my newest tools that can't hardly live without. Today I'm going to share one of my oldest tools. I've got a couple that are a little bit older, but it's going to take two hands. I got to set the pipe down. This is kind of your quintessential classic. What do we got there? Handsaw. Now this thing, you're never going to be able to read it, but it's got a stamp on it. So this is from before they, when was it, in the 1850s or 1860s when they started etching the blades. This one's actually got a stamp with the maker mark, Groves and Sons. And from the research that I can tell, it's probably 1820s to 1840s for this saw. Now it's seen better days. We're missing a tooth up here. Which, I don't know if you can. Yeah, missing a tooth, and the handle. We got a crack, and one of the other interesting things, it doesn't have the screws like a lot of newer like 1850s and newer saws have. It's actually got rivets. Now I don't think these are the original rivets. I think the handle was removed at some time for some reason, or the original rivets got loose and they just replaced them. But yeah, so that's kind of making me think we're probably looking more 1820s, 1830s on this. The reason I know it's newer than 1820s because Groves made saws starting in the late 1700s. But this particular one, so you won't be able to read it on there, but it's Groves and Sons. And the Sons on the stamp began in 1822. But the style of the stamp kind of leads me to believe it's closer to that 1822 rather than the 1840s, just because all the stamps that I've seen that are from like the 1830s and 1840s, they got just a little bit more like an arc on the stamp. This one's just straight across, Groves and Sons, or they've got like a logo. And this doesn't have any of that, so I'm leaning to believe it's probably earlier one. Some of the forums have said that they made cheaper ones in the 1860s and later that had some of the less fancy. They didn't have the etching or as fancy as stamping, but the handles were a lot more plain than this one. This one's got the lamb's tongue on the handle there, and just I'm amazed thinking that something potentially 200 years old, all the hands that have held this. And I got this thing, I think I paid $2 for it. I was at a swap meet. There was a bucket of old handsaws, $2 a piece. There's probably 20 of them in the bucket. So I kind of collect the old woodworking hand tools, so I went through and I picked anything out that looked like it was like a high quality pre-World War II. In fact, I think I grabbed 3 of them, asked them if they take $5, and they did. Now that I think about it. And that one was in the bunch. So, and how that ended up in Minnesota, because if it's from the 1820s, 1830s, there wasn't much going on for European related stuff in Minnesota in the 1820s, 1830s. So I'm sure it made its way from out east someplace and just worked its way across, ended up in Minnesota. But yeah, that Groves and Sons is a Sheffield, London brand. Of course, in the early and mid 1800s, Sheffield is where all the best stuff was made. As far as edge tools, anyway. But yeah, it's got the old nib, all the books on collecting tools. Nobody seems to know what the nib is for. The closest thing to a consensus is that it was only decorative, nothing more. We've got a bunch of other old woodworking hand tools. That's probably what most of these Codger Tool Time Tuesdays, Codger and a Cobb Tool Time Tuesdays are going to end up being. But I've got some modern and some, I guess, vintage user tools. And this one I haven't done anything other than I removed a little bit of the rust from the blade. I mean, I didn't do a lot because once I realized how old it was, I didn't want to really do any damage. I wanted to preserve as much as I could of it. But yeah. And I would like to, once I trust my tool restoration skills a little bit better, I'd like to bring it back to totally usable condition. It's not far, and basically I think all I would need to do, we got a little bit of, the blade isn't perfectly straight, we got a little bit of waviness and a little bit of a bow to it. So I'd need to do some straightening on the saw blade, and then obviously sharpening, which it could probably cut the way it is, but yeah. But yeah, thinking of all the hands that probably held this, all the stuff that was built using this saw, it was probably used up until the 1960s, when power tools became more affordable. I know my dad, well, in fact, he had a contracting business for a while, but he used handsaws quite a bit. I remember when I was really young and they were building our house, he did have a skill saw, but a lot of times if they just needed to cut a 2x4, they'd just grab the handsaw and a couple of strokes with a good sharp handsaw and they'd be through it quicker than they could stretch out the extension cord and then use the skill saw. So I mean, that would have been probably in the late 70s. Got my shop cap mittens here showed up. Now we're rambling on long enough, so happy Codger and a Cobb and Tool Time Tuesday. Joshua Stewart, smoking a pipe up north in the woods. Have a good day.